we basically said, okay, hey guys, we did the thing. We went out. We said that all we had to do was raise this brand and then you'd fund us. And they said, oh, well, um, we don't, the economy's gotten tough and we can't fund you. Really what it was is those guys never had the money to begin with, and they didn't expect me to actually do the thing. They didn't expect me to go and raise an entire other brand, right? But what I'll say, it's easy to look at that and say that was a tremendous waste of time. It wasn't. I learned how to raise a brand, and I learned how to do it cheaply because we didn't have any money back then. I learned how to put together a very early stage marketing flywheel. I learned how to go into Facebook and set up an ad drip. I learned how to do the same thing with our emails. I learned all these pieces of the puzzle that I would have been clueless about otherwise. And so that odyssey, while frustrating, had its benefits. Then, we made some money. I made some money and brought in some revenues with that early brand. And I went back to new investors. Now rather than dealing with angels, I'm dealing with VC. And those, venture investors.
And really quick, I just want to pause you real quick.
Please.
Before you got to the VC part and when you first developed the prototype, you had mentioned, you built the most, I guess you were selling some products underneath the most brand as well.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you determined pricing and what, the problems for your consumers were at that point versus, upscaling, I guess, the product into what the problems are now? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It was really the customer interview for the Mint is the same as the customer interviews for the Sonic detangler that we developed at the most, right? It's the same pain point. It's the same, wash day woe. It was just a matter of paring it down, right? So with the Mint, we're solving 2, 3, 5 different problems.
And that is the Mint right there.
This is
That
the
what we're
Mint.
looking?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Oh, snap.
In the flesh. All right.
This
Cool.
is our guy.
You hold that out real quick for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is our guy. And as you can see, it's halfway empty, right? So I've got one more wash day left in this pod before it's done. But yeah, we basically solve 3 or 4 or 5 different pain points with this. This one solves detangling and product conditioning and product application and the time savings issue and the travel issue. The value goes on and on. But we basically picked one of those, detangling. And because detangling is so painful and also time consuming for that consumer. And we said, okay, this is the one that we're going to focus on. And we just got some off the shelf products. Now, this off the shelf detangler had been marketed by Conair and a few others. Revlon maybe, but they weren't fast enough to work on black hair, right? So we had the manufacturer who just had like thousands of these things sitting around, right? We had them tweak the motor so that it was just a little faster for textured hair. Then they sent me one. I tested it. And I sent it back and I said, it needs to be a little slower. Then they sent me one and I tested it. And then I said, a little faster. And so we went back and forth until we found a speed that worked. And then they shipped us 1,000 of those products. And within a year, we were sold out of those products. And so, that detangler, we didn't have a huge marketing budget. Right? That detangler sold because the problem was that real. The problem was just really complicated for people. And so that was a really good proof point to investors that there's a there. And so those investors activated with us, and I think we raised like $650 to start. And that $650 was budgeted. So let's talk about.
So it's like tranched, you mean? Like based on
No.
Okay,
so so you talk to investors and they say, oh, how much do you need? Right. And so at first I would start out saying I need $3 million, right? Because that's how much at this point I've done the hardware accelerators and I'm sitting next to, the white guy who is 19 years old and doesn't have my credentials and, raises $3 million to get his product done. Like I know
Nepotism.
it's
got you.
Right. I know it's doable. And I also know because I've built relationships with these guys, we're talking about how much it costs to raise our companies. And I'm hearing consistently between 2 and 3 mil. Sure, there were folks who were outliers who were much, much more expensive than that. But basically I'm hearing on average about 2 to 3 mil. And so that's what I'm asking for. And everybody says the exact same thing. Literally, everybody says, but I don't think that you're going to be able to raise that much, so I'm not going to come in. And they weren't wrong, right? I probably wouldn't have been able to raise that much given the statistics that we know about Black women in venture. So I lowered it. How much? Like, what's the lowest I can go where I can maybe probably still get something to market? And we came up with that number of 650. 650 was an impossible number to get new tech-enabled hardware, engineered, designed, manufactured, and branded. It's impossible. But with that 650, we got pretty far. We ran into some snags at a certain point and we ran out of money. But by that time, we had the progress and the traction and more wins and more pitch competitions and more pre-sales and more all the things where we could go back to investors and say, hey, holler at another 300K. With that first round, it was 2 tranches of rounds, or 2 kind of segments of that pre-seed round. But we did probably 1.1 with that round, which is not enough. But we were able to kind of do the testing. We were really lucky because some of our partners were big manufacturers. One of our partners was Dow. Dow is a big kind of chemical manufacturer. And Dow had just opened up a hair care unit. Okay, so now they're really interested in hair care and they want to come on. This was also in 2020 when a lot of corporates were, just interested in partnering with Black people. And so they partnered with me and they gave me a lot of intel and they gave me a lot of guidance and they lowered our costs because we had engineers that we seconded to help us refine our design. And eventually we were able to get the product fully branded and fully to market. I am just rambling on and on, so I'm gonna pause.
You're
The
okay.
long of it.
All of this, oh no, the reason why I was letting you go and I was just interrupting and just bits and pieces is because all of this is really good information. To be honest with you, like I think that the audience is definitely going to love the fact that you're talking about the journey, the grind, because
Yeah.
it just isn't seen on a day to day, right? Like you've
No.
talked about the fact that you went to, these pitch competitions, these VC meetings where you're looking at your colleagues who aren't even half qualified as you to your, effect, right? You
Yep.
have a law degree. You've done the whole thing in politics. You've come back, started a whole real estate business, done well with that, community oriented ecosystems. You did the thing and now you're doing the thing again. You've done the thing multiple times. And then it's like, well, why can't I do this thing? Because everybody thinks that I can't do the thing after did the thing like about 10 times before. So I get you. Like, it's great. I appreciate you for sharing this because, part of it also is that what I also want to understand from your perspective is how hard is it mentally to really go through all of the trials and tribulations, the time and time again of you trying the product and it just not working today. Maybe the safety is off one day, it's a little too hot, you might have burnt yourself one day, sent it back. How was that process of the reiteration, the innovation, the safety, sensitivity of that, messing with your hair? Did you lose some hair while you were testing the product? How was that process like? Because a lot of entrepreneurs should be trying their products out, whether they are or aren't thing, but you seem to have done it, right?
Yeah.
So just want to know from your perspective, how has that been?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much there. So the testing process was a lot, right? So there's me, right? Like I was our main tester, but then we had a beta testing groups, probably about 18-ish people total that we use for different things. And basically, these were my guinea pigs, right? These were women who were so obsessed with getting this product to market that they were willing to give us their time. And just every time I need a new video and new testimonial, they were just always there. So I'm very grateful to those women. But this process, gosh, it started with those Chinese prototypes, right? Those Chinese prototypes came back and they were super, super flimsy, but we got just enough feedback to figure out what the direction needed to be once we got official funding. We get official funding. We partner with Dow. Now, Dow is asking, hey, I need you to do more in-depth customer interviews. We want to see in-depth customer interviews, with these prototypes. So I do that. Then we feed that feedback to our brand new engineering lab, Tomorrow Labs, out of New York. Tomorrow Labs is so dedicated to this process that the guys in their office go and buy Afro textured wigs and put them on their heads and try to perform a wash day. A styling
What?
I
Yeah.
And
hope
how
they
did
did
they?
not
How did
do that on Zoom because that's a microaggression.
We need to get that. I know it's somewhere. I
actually?
need to go get it. I need to
There's
get
a
it.
video log of this somewhere.
Yeah, they're
I love that.
pictures, and I'm pretty sure we can find some video. So that happened, and then listen, this is a very vulnerable process, and part of the reason nobody has come out with a tool like this is because this process happens in a Black woman's very intimate time. Right? So she is just getting out of the shower. She still has on her towel. Her hair is dripping wet. She has on no makeup. She is looking a mess. She doesn't really feel like it. She's kind of tired, right? Like that's when this happens. This is not a cutesy moment. This is not an Instagrammable moment. Okay. And
Right.
so part of the reason that nobody has built this product is because you don't see that part of a Black woman's life, right? You're not supposed to. It is hidden from view. We have an
Mhm.
entire culture that has sprung up around hiding that from view. So I had to, in order to make sure that my engineering team really understood what this process was like, I had to, for a period of some weeks, right? Every time I had a wash day, I would get onto the Zoom with my engineering team exactly how I would be when I'm styling, right? So in my towel, hair dripping wet, right? And I'm talking them through the process as I'm going, right? This is what I'm feeling right now. And because I'm feeling a little bit of a snag, I know that I started detangling too high up. So I've got to start further
Lower.
down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
My hair is feeling really dry today. So I think I'm probably going to do an extra bit of moisture. So I'm going to do some hyaluronic acid serum to give it a little bit more moisture. And I'm walking through the whole thing and trying to walk them through the logic of a Black woman's wash day. In addition to that, we did tests, right? So I personally did tests. We cooked but we had, I don't know, like maybe 20 different brands of product. We put them in a vat in test tubes, like what you would see like in a science lab. We put them in a vat and we labeled each one, and we used a sous vide machine. Do you guys know what a sous vide machine is? Yeah.
I know what that
Yeah.
is. Yep. I
That
love
sous
cooking.
vide machine warms up water to a very specific temperature. And you heat all of that product up at, I don't know, 120 degrees. And then you try out all the product on different tranches of hair and take notes on that temperature and the product's response. And you do that at 130 and 135 and 140 and 145. It takes a few weeks to get through all of those wash days. But basically, through that process, we were able to figure out what temperature made the most sense and would be the best common denominator for the viscosities of all of these products in the Black hair care space. To all of those 18 beta testers I told you about, we sent them materials. We sent them scoops and spoons and little scales and spreadsheets and little containers. And we said, okay, every wash day, we want you to measure how much product you're using on each section of hair. We want you to weigh it. We want you to subtract it from the weight of the container that we sent you. We sent them the weights of each of those containers so that they could do the math. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Did they
So much
also?
testing.
I'm assuming you also included like their hair viscosity and porosity, all that stuff. Like, how did you guys take that into account, knowing that that's going to be different depending on what they sleep in? You know, if they don't cover their hair at night, going out.
That's
Like,
right.
how did you
Yeah.
take into the variables of the nuances behind Black hair care and
Yeah.
the things that we kind of go through?
Yeah. And it's a difficult space because one person's 3C is another person's 4B, right? Like
Right. Mm-hmm.
the hair scale is so malleable and up to so much subjective interpretation. So it's really difficult to standardize who is what. So we did two
Interesting. Okay.
things. We had the ladies all classify themselves. What's your hair type? Type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. For the folks who aren't familiar with the hair types, is 4 types and then an A, B, and C for each of those types. You've got type 1A, B, C, 2A, B, C, through 4C, right? Afro textured hair usually lies somewhere between a type 3 and a type 4. And so we had all of those ladies say what they thought they were. We had them rate their hair density. We kept it simple. If you were to guess if your hair density is a 1 or a 2 or a 3, right? What do you think it is? So we had them kind of self-identify, and then I identify them. right? So this is what
Gotcha.
I think they are. And between those two, we were able to kind of figure out kind of maybe where somebody might lie. And so that's kind of what we did. It's messy. That is the answer to your question. It is messy.
I
And you
understand.
just kind of have to collect whatever data you can in whatever way you can, and then we'll sort the rest out later. We're doing the same thing now. We've got real manufactured product out on the market. And one of the kind of defining characteristics of our technology is that it's tailorable, right? So we have, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these attachments. We've got 3 or 4 of these bristle heads, and you can change them out. And the question that we get all the time is, well, which one, for my hair, which one should I be using? I don't know. I don't know which one is going to work on your hair. And so we're trying to collect that data from users. How do you see yourself? What do you call your hair type? And which of these bristles works best for you? It's a really painstaking process because nobody has done this before, right? We don't have Procter and Gamble collecting data on black hair care and how much product a user is using on a wash day and how many wash days they're doing a week and a month, right? They're not collecting that data like that. They're collecting data about the financials, how much this customer is spending, but they're not collecting data on the actual problem because they don't actually care about the problem and they don't have context about the problem enough to even know where to start. I'm getting off track. What did you ask me?
No, you're okay. You answered it and some because that was going to take me into a whole another realm, and we got to move on to the next segment. So, Michael, you have anything to say about what Don just talked about?
I mean, this is so good. Like, yeah, I will send. Like, I hope I could send like this unedited version to my girlfriend just for her to listen to because this is just like so good. I think you talk about like, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the business model, but it's certain companies, they kind of charge more to people who don't understand certain processes, especially if it's like software as a service or you're doing your taxes. Usually it's cheaper the more you know, but you're offering a flat rate fee with those interchangeable parts. So whether someone has 3A towards the front of their hair and 4C in the back, you're giving them the chance to learn as they go with a flat rate fee product. I think that's just such a key part. And is that really where you were thinking? You didn't want to tier, because you see that whether it's Carol's Daughter down to Cantu, down to Shea Moisture, certain products based off of how shiny the curl or how, I don't even want to get too far into it, but you wanted to do a one size fits all to let anyone of the diaspora be able to do their hair and have it look as beautiful as they want it to look.
Yeah, I mean, it's an economics conversation, right? So when you think about it, getting the core technology manufactured is going to be expensive, and we're manufacturing in very small batches. And so our cost of goods sold, depending on what's going on, landed is going to be somewhere between $80 and $200. Now, that is a big window, right? Obviously, there are lots of different things that can affect those prices. But the point is, because our cost of goods sold landed is so high, we've got to charge a lot of money to make any money off of this, right? This has got to be a $400 product. And so the question becomes, how do we add all those bells and whistles that make this feel like it's worth 400 to the customer? That's nothing for us. This little piece of plastic, this is nothing, right? All the expensive parts are over here. This costs very little. Once you have the molding done, once you have the kind of tooling done for this, it's not a big deal to have other parts made, right? So for me, the thought process was, okay, we want to make sure that this customer feels like they're getting their money's worth. So let's give them as much value as possible. Let's give them some beautiful packaging. Let's give them a little personal touch, right? So for all of our first batch, everybody in our first batch, they got a handwritten note from me. That cost me probably, I don't know, $20. But it makes people feel catered to. So yeah, I mean, little things like our charger is a travel ready charger. So you can
Wow.
pop this off and take, and we include all the other attachments for travel so that if you are, traveling for work, or maybe you're traveling in the United States, but to a part of the country that doesn't have your products, not only can you travel and know internationally you're taken care of, but if you end up in, I don't know, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, you know that you have your products with you no matter what. So it's about kind of that art and a science, right? The science part is, how do I make this product work as well as possible, but the art part is how do I make this customer feel like they're getting their money's worth.
No, and I appreciate
Absolutely.
you for that. That's oh my God. I'm just even thinking about the fact that the product exists right now, and then all of the different applications and use cases. Back when my hair was longer in college, I could have definitely used that, so that would
Well,
have been
listen, I see
appreciated.
you growing out that beard, and we're testing on men to do their
Really?
beards. We are,
All right.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
sign me
you
up.
can get
I'm
me a,
here with
you know, you
it.
can, yeah, man.
Yeah.
So come guys.
Really, really quick. Tell us a little bit about. So, can customers find this just only online right now? Is it in stores, or is something coming soon with Ulta or one of the major retailers? What's going on there?
Maybe. What I can tell you
Okay.
is that you can cop our next drop of product online at ritualist.com. That's RICHUALIST. And basically, listen, we produce in small batches, so you got to get on the list like ASAP because once it's
Okay.
gone, it's gone. It's going to take a while for us to get it back in stock. And so we are launching that next batch very soon. And yeah, we've had conversations with a lot of big folks, and we just got to get our supply chain and logistics tighter before we can make that move. That's a whole nother listen. Every time you kind of reach that
I
peak,
understand.
you're at the valley of another mountain. You guys know how it goes. So now we're at the valley of getting that supply chain really tight to handle the volumes. And I think you guys know that we're going on Shark Tank soon. We are official to
Congrats.
kind of let people know, yeah, that we're going on Shark Tank. And, so many opportunities have come out of that. And so we're just really excited to see where all those lead.
I
And
appreciate
the
you sharing.
next release is, can we say summer 2024?
You can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking about that, I know you mentioned Shark Tank. Is Shark Tank a part of your secret sauce, your moat, or what can you tell us about the secret sauce that Ritualist has and what you've created up until this point? What is the IP behind what you do?
Oh, what's the IP? Yeah. So we have spent a lot of time on this IP and building that moat around our company. And it's tough because this isn't, IP is very expensive. And also, this isn't about one patent or one design patent or one copyright, right? Like building an IP moat requires a lot of time, it requires layers of protection, it requires a lot of money. And so we're essentially in, let's call it V2 or V3, depending on how you count, of our IP journey. The first kind of big, milestone was getting our first utility patent. We did that. So that's a big accomplishment. And now what we're doing, now that the product is out there, here's the thing.
Can you explain a little bit about that real quick before you
Sure.
go on? Just what is a utility pound for, our consumers who don't know? Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit about that? We're not all
Okay,
too lost.
so the IP regime is trifold. So you've got copyrights, trademarks, and patents. So your copyrights are for artistic works, right? So your songs, maybe a book. Your trademarks are for brand matters. That's going to be your logos and your trade names. Then you've got patents. Patents cover innovation, right? So we want to encourage innovation in the United States, right? So we want to make sure that people who innovate can bar other people from stealing their thing. And so basically what we're doing is we're getting protection for our invention. And it's a tricky game, patents, right? Because now the USPTO has been around for a very long time. There are thousands and thousands and thousands, if not millions, probably millions at this point, of patents. It's definitely millions. And so basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a patent that's broad enough that it really protects your invention, but that's narrow enough that it'll pass muster and it doesn't infringe on all of the other thousands and millions of products in your vertical, right? So it's a very tricky game. So we started out very narrow, right? We wanted to cover just really the kind of basic functionality of the product. But and we did that for a reason, right? One, we wanted to get a utility patent. We wanted to get some protection. But then in addition to that, once your patent is public, people can see everything that patent covers, right? So what happens a lot of times with other countries, they're not necessarily covered by the PTO, by the USPTO. And so they see the inner workings of your thing and then they just go make it. USPTO doesn't control there. right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we wanted to like get some protection, but also protect all of the work that we did to figure out all those big variables that we discussed earlier in the show to make the product go. Now that the product's out on the market, right? Somebody can get this in their hands. A L'Oreal, a Procter and Gamble can get this in their hands and say, "Oh, well, we just want to make this. We want to rip her off." And here's the thing about IP: you have to have protection so that you don't get barred from making the thing that you invented. But on the other hand, IP litigation is very expensive, right? So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of big manufacturers know if I pick this up and I steal this from her, she doesn't have the dough to be able to litigate this. And so who cares? Who cares if we infringe, right? And so it becomes a very, again, it's an art and a science around protecting your product while still kind of keeping enough close to the chest. Now we're at a place, right, where the product is out in the market. People know how it works. And so now we can cover some of the inner workings of the thing. And so people won't be able to kind of infringe on all of the work that we've done to figure out how to put all these really great pieces together.
Gotcha. So
So
you phase out the patents in a sense, like just making sure with the phase two or version one, version two, version three, it's more of like a safety and security thing. Like don't release all too much all at once, but just make sure you get enough to make sure that the product is safe. But how
that's
do you
right.
protect it? How do you protect against everybody else? Are you like in China, for example? I guess when you manufactured there, I'm assuming they got the plans. So are you also patented in other locales around the world, or how does that work for
Yeah,
your
so
company?
we have patents pending in the European region and in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tricky business. It's tricky business. And what I'll say is that at the end of the day, all of this, whether you're worried about a Procter and Gamble coming and stealing your thing, whether you're worried about China coming and stealing your thing, it doesn't matter. Uh, what at the end of the day, what protects you is brand, right? What protects you is getting big enough where your core market recognizes you as that girl, right? So basically what we're trying to do at this point is grow so that people know this is Black woman owned, this is Black woman run, this is Black woman invented. And so when Procter and Gamble says, we want to get our hands on that, and we're already seeing little pieces and bits of that kind of activity now, our Black women consumers will say, we know whose this is. This is Dawn. She made this. And then that puts Procter and Gamble in a position where they have to acquire you to get their hands on that technology, right? So at the end of the day, yes, you've got to have the IP. And here's the thing, IP is going to be completely different for different companies, right? My IP path is going to be completely different from a SaaS company, right? For some companies, it doesn't even make sense early stage for them to even focus on IP. But for me and for most hardware companies, it absolutely makes sense to think through IP. And so we've been really strategic about it. And we're kind of moving we started with a baseline utility patent. Then we went on to design patents. Then we went on to kind of trademarks and logos. Then we're coming back to utility patents and getting more coverage on the inner workings of the thing. Now we're starting to contemplate, what does that V2 look like? What does that V3 look like? What's that second product in our line that we want to launch, right? And so now we're starting to think about provisional patents for all of those pieces of the puzzle that we don't have the money to prosecute yet. And quite frankly, we haven't gotten far enough in development where we have anything to anything to
Gotcha.
file. But you want to start thinking about provisional patents for some of the stuff that's kind of further down the pike.
And I know provisional patents can be like an amazing tool for entrepreneurs to use as early in the game as possible, because I
Yeah.
know it's use in business. So when did you officially claim this name of the of this invention? And then two, or I might be confused that with logos, but more or less, it's around $200 to $1,000 for you to put out a provisional patent, which within a year you have to create the full patent as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
exactly
just wanted
right.
to speak towards that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's really good. And it's a really, as you said, it's a really powerful tool. And what's great about provisionals is that there's kind of a kind of secret switch flip that a lot of people don't know about, which is expedited provisionals, right? So you can get a provisional, you've got that year, right? So you get a provisional and then you start working with an engineer and you get further down the road. And then you file your non provisional with the real engineering that you want to put out there. But what can happen is maybe you don't have a year, right? Maybe you're starting to see people who look like a threat to you, or maybe you get done with engineering a lot sooner than you wanted to, and you want to make sure that you're protected. You can fast track your provisional patent application, and that flexibility is really great for a lot of us, particularly if, say, you're ready to go out and start raising. You want to have that patent under your belt, and being able to fast track or expedite your provisional patent can be really helpful.
It's just amazing to see, from talking about the competition to like what brought you here. You're a Black woman on this earth that's creating something for the billions of Black women on this earth today. So I can't think of like a more honorable opportunity than to interview you and like get your experience on building a company and a brand like the Ritualist and the Most and others as well. So thank you, Dawn.
Thank you. That's very, very kind. As always, you are far too kind, but this has been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no
Absolutely.
problem. Thanks again for joining us. I really want to really quick ask my last question. I get an inkling that you are trying to sell the company at some point. You want to get that $1 billion unicorn exit. Is this true?
Absolutely.
What do you try? Okay, so if that's the case, right, are you intending on just, it's a one sale and done, or, I'm assuming that this company is one of the many companies within the Shell umbrella that you have. So are you going to be collecting any type of royalties? Have you set something up like that for the IP in terms of the patent? Your name is on it. So obviously, you got a whole lot of things going for you already. So I'm just trying to figure out, what is it like for an entrepreneur trying to build an empire, but also protect it, knowing that you're going to sell it at some point?
Yeah. So what's really great about our business model is that we kind of have a pod model, right? And so, sure, you sell the hardware, but like you get people kind of locked in on these pods. And you better bet your butt that I am getting residuals on the sale of each of those pods. That's really tricky. That becomes a whole conversation, right? Because you need to make sure that you're not self-dealing, and you want to set up a board, and you want to make sure that that board approves you getting those residuals. So you want to set up a board that's really friendly to you, but also averse enough that you're getting a diversity of opinions. As always, these things are so complex. It's never just kind of a straight line. But yes, short answer to your question.
All right. Appreciate that.
And I want to jump in real quick. Let's talk a little bit about that pod because it looks fire. You talked about it throughout the convo, even sharing, like, you can tell how much is used. Again, I talked about Carol's daughter, and I know that sometimes for Cara, that's a little more straight. When you look at Cantu, it can help with like a little more curly 4C hair like mine. Let's talk about the pod. Any differences in it? What does it smell like? How can we use it? Just would love to just have you share about this new invention.
Yeah, so what I'll say is that we partnered with a bunch of C-suiters from Keurig, right? So those were my early stage advisors. Literally, John Naughton, the guy who kind of put the Keurig K-Cup pod out onto the market, like that was his job. That's the guy who is helping me develop this pod strategy. And basically what we're trying to do is kind of do what Keurig did in the kind of coffee and food and beverage space. I mean, Keurig is, I think it's Keurig 7-Up now, but they're the biggest behemoth in the food and beverage space, and they did that because their pods allowed them to piggyback off of the brand recognition and the brand loyalty of all of the hundreds, probably at this point, of brands that they partner with for their pods, right? And so we wanted to do something simple or something similar, and it sounds crazy, right? Because coffee, textured hair, like how do these have anything in common? But for this customer, there's a lot in common, right? This customer is ravenous about their product, right? Whether it's a coffee drinker who is ravenous about their Green Mountain pod, or a textured hair consumer who is ravenous about her curl mix creams, right? One way or the other, these customers are ravenous, and they're looking for any inkling of convenience that they can get, right? So coffee happens in the morning, you're rushing out of the door, right? If you can save 4 minutes, 5 minutes, that's a big deal. For textured hair consumers, it's even more exaggerated. We're spending 2, 3, 5 hours, depending on the length and density and texture of your hair, on this wash day thing, right? So for her, time savings is really a big deal. We're not talking about saving 5 minutes. We're talking about saving 30 minutes on the low end, a couple of hours on the high end, that's not small. And so, there's a lot of kind of similarities. And so we basically kind of took this pod model and said, okay, we want to kind of increase convenience for this customer, and we want to increase the kind of end goal, right? We want to make their hair healthier and shinier. How do we make all this work, right? So we came up with this pod that basically conditions your product, right? So it just very gently warms it to the perfect temperature for textured hair, where you're getting great penetration, but none of the damage that comes with high heat, right? And then you are able to basically just kind of comb that conditioned product through your hair in a way that reduces friction and manipulation. And reducing friction and manipulation, you're able to detangle faster, and you're able to reduce the amount of shedding. So throughout our entire lives, but particularly as we age, we're shedding more hair. That's a curly girl's nightmare. We want volume, right? And so being able to reduce shedding is a really, really big pressure point that we're relieving for our customers.
Amazing. Yep, it's all coming soon enough. Summer 2024. I ain't got no excuse for my girl.
Say less.
Don't. I've got it on tape.
I'm getting it for myself, so shoot. I'm growing my hair back out 2024, 2025. That's what we're doing.
Beautiful. Well, look,
Appreciate
if you guys,
Dawn.
I would love if you guys can go to the website and look, you guys have been in the space. Tell me what you think, but sign up too. And I'd love if your audience could sign up. We are really trying to grow our community.
No, and we will definitely share it with everybody that we have. We just want to remind you, if you have any promotional material that you have, like a commercial or something like that, you want to share with the episode, feel free to share that with us so that way we can add it and put that up on the socials on the website as well. So that way we can get your brand and your voice out there.
That's amazing.
People, so
yeah, I'll have my guys send something over there.
Okay. Thank you so much. This has been a great episode.
Yes,
Michael, you want to take it out?
Thank you so much. Please tell us again where people can reach you. Where people can reach you.
Yeah, so you can follow the brand at Get Ritualist on IG. That's GETRICHUALIST. You can find me on Instagram at Dawn Does the Most, and you can visit our website at www.ritualist.com. Again, that's RICHUALIST.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be chatting soon enough. We got to learn how you work, why you work, and we're going to keep working to expand and give more voices like yours to the people who need to hear it.
Amazing. Definitely got to tap back in with you soon. So thank you again.
Sure. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye.